boils down to this, folks. Chelsea are into the final of the Conference League. Standing in the way is one of La Liga's finest. Who am I talking about? Well, I'll tell you next. That's right, folks, but once again, we're in another prediction video today. It's all about the Conference League, and we've got a bit of a cracker coming at you just around the corner. Of course, if you're new, where you been? Smash your subscribe button, one-stop shop for Conference League, Babble Rovers, World Football. We're going to all here under one rooski. Chelsea have had a decent season going under the radar with this very, very young squad. Now, will this young squad go away with a bit of silverwear? We'll take a look in just a second. Of course, if you're new, where you been? Hit the old subscribe, and a big shout out to the members and the patrons. You know who you are. So what we're going to do now, though, is, of course, revisit my semi-final predictions, then of course take a little look back of the course of the tournament, and then kick it on forward to my final predictions. So sit tight, hold on, and let's get into it then, shall we, as we revisit my predictions from last time. What am I talking about? Well, I'll tell you in a second. Of course, this should be jumping on the screen anytime now. Hang on a minute, it's a little bit big, that is. That's what she said. Stand by. Alrighty then, folks, on the screen now should be the results from the semi-finals, second legs, and of course the aggregate scorelines. So take a look at it as we revisit them. Fiorentina coming out on top with a 2-0 win. That was my prediction against Real Betis, but guess what? It was a 2-2 draw final score, and ultimately Real Betis going through 4-3 to set up a bit of a cracker. Who are they taking on? Well, they're going to be taking on Chelsea, that's right, with a 3-0 win. That was my calling on the night at Stamford Bridge, but it ended up being just a 1-0 win for them over Douche Gardens over in England. And of course, that wrapped up a convincing 5-1 aggregate scoreline to set up a final against Real Betis. But before all that, let's recap how we got to this point with, of course, a rundown of the table. Now, here it is on the screen. We said goodbye to the likes of Hearts, Midlothian, Başakşehir out of Turkey. They couldn't even get out of the league stages. But into the playoff rounds, we saw the likes of Apo Nicosia, Panathinaikos, Heidenheim out of Germany. We had Omonia Nicosia, Mulder as well, who, of course, could have been in the mix. The Shamrock Rovers finishing as high as 10th, just shy of that, the top 8 spots, the seeded positions, which Chelsea did finish in top spot ahead of Victoria Guadamares, our current, or our joining finalists. Real Betis finishing as low as 15th in that league table. Goodness gracious me. But we navigated through that league structure and, of course, into the playoffs and eventually into the round of 16, which should be on the screen right now. You can just about see it. And as we look at it, let's take a look at Real Betis, how they got to the final. They did take care of the second rank, the second seed, Victor Guadamares, in that round of 16, getting past those guys. Then took on Jagiellonian Blaszczak over in Poland, of course. And then they took on that sweet, sweet, sweet semi-final against Fiorentina to set up this barnstormer up against Chelsea. Now, Chelsea's journey also quite challenging. Copenhagen along the way. They also took on a Polish outfit in the quarterfinal stages, Liga Warsaw, before they got into a nice encounter up against Douche Gardens. Kudos for them to get into that semi-final stages, but ultimately Chelsea too much quality, and set up this final up against Real Betis. That's right. So that is how we got to the stage. We are now left with this, of course. It is the cherry on top. It is Real Betis. It is Chelsea. And guess what, guys? It's over the course of just one match. One match changes it all. And, of course, it'll decide the future. Of course, pathway into Europe. Chelsea look like they're going to get a little bit of a better end product with their finish in the domestic leagues. Real Betis, though, need this to at least qualify for Europa League next season, because the domestic season has been a bit of a poo-poo head. All right, then, folks, let's get into this one then, shall we, as we look forward to this match, which will take place on the 28th of May. I am recording this considerably well ahead of schedule, so a lot of things can change. We're talking about form, we're talking about injuries and all that kind of stuff, so please bear that in mind. Also, let you know that we do have a Football Manager simulation of this very match, this very tournament, this very final, where we simulated the match over 100 times to see what kind of result we get. So make sure you check that out as well. So let's get into it then, shall we, as Real Betis come into this after finishing in 15th in the Europa League, in the Europa Conference League, mid-table, very, very much close to elimination as well at some points. But they're coming into this right here, right now, on good bit of form. That is domestic and in Europe. They have got 83% form as of recording. Meanwhile, Chelsea also coming into this, and remember, finishing top spot, but also as of right here, right now, with 83% form for them. What does that mean? They've actually won 5 on the spin, but of course they did lose one match way back, whenever that was. Of course, it was probably, yeah, we'll investigate that shortly. Anyway, now Now, these two sides have played twice since the course of 2005. 1 win apiece, no draws thus far. Betis' one and only win was a 1-0 win, and that's all that is needed, guys. Remember, a 1-0 win is good enough to win this title here. Of course, we're picking up a 1 goal a game ratio, 0.5 goals a game over the course of 2 matches. Of course, Chelsea, though, they do have a 4-0 win on the record. They've scored 4 goals in total against Real Betis, pick up a 2 goals a game average. What am I talking about? Well, both of these matches do take place back in the 2005-2006 Champions League phase in the group stages, way back in Group G there. The Spanish outfit winning 1-0 in Spain, with Chelsea picking up a 4-0 win over in Chelsea. Of course, this is a neutral venue for this game. And coming into this right here, right now, Chelsea will be taking on, before this game, quite a few teams. They're taking on the Geordies, they're taking on Man United, and they're taking on Forest. All difficult matches, and again, ones that Chelsea kind of need to focus on. And realistically, those matches will hold more significance than this one, because they want to finish in the top 4. Top 4 guarantees Champions League football, whereas this only guarantees you Europa League football. So priorities might switch over to this one, but don't get me wrong, this is, of course, a cherry on the top, and will be a nice end of the season finale for Chelsea in what could be a fantastic season for them. Meanwhile, as for Real Betis, again, focus is more for them on this one, because the domestic form is pretty woeful, and I don't see them getting anywhere near the European spots as of right now. They're coming into this on the back of a 2-1 of Espanyol, and again the 2-2 draw against Fiorentina. Prior to this game, they'll take on Osasuna, they'll take on Vallecano as well, and then they'll take on Atletico and Valencia. So there's some big games in there, and I don't see them picking up maybe more than 1 or maybe 4 points out of a possible 6. So difficult running for them. I don't really have much odds on this one, because we are recording this quite early, but I would anticipate Chelsea are still favoured, despite the fact that they are probably going to prioritise Premier League football instead of this one. But coming into this one, everything's on the table here. Everyone wants to win some silverware, especially a new coach in Chelsea, and Marquesca, who of course this is his first season there, and to be honest with you, despite all the fanfare and all the controversy with Chelsea buying everybody, this will be a good return for him on his first season. He's going under the radar, got a nice young squad brewing here, and of course this could be a start for something else moving into the next season and beyond. So I'm going to stick my neck out on this one, and I'm going to go with a 3-1 win, Chelsea. Quite comfortable win in the end. Does that match my simulation video? Well, I don't know. You've got to tell me that down below in the comments. But that, my friends, is what I see will happening in the Conference League final coming at you on the 28th of May. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Of course, big grandstand finish coming at you across Europe and beyond. And don't forget, we'll keep an eye on Chelsea in the Club World Cup right here on the channel. We're going to have watch-alongs, previews, predictions, all that kind of good stuff. So make sure you smash the subscribe and smash the like. We'll catch you soon, guys. Until then, we're done.